Hi guys, I'm Aravindri. Today I'm going to talk about managing IT projects. So more specifically, what is meant by a project? It is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or either a result. So can anyone tell me why we call a project temporary? Yeah, because project either a product or be it a service or a result, it's always unique from one to another. If we take a website also, it's unique from one to another. So every project has a life cycle. So let's look at the typical phases in project management. First one is the initiating phase, planning, executing and controlling, and the closing stage. So during the initiating phase, we define the project. We also appoint the project team, and not only that, we come up with the project charter, the scope of work, project scope and objectives. So these are the things that we do during the initiating phase. And next we look at the planning stage. So this is very critical, planning stage, because this is where we need to set up things properly. We need to come up with the project organization chart, work breakdown structure, then the project management plan, likewise. So the executing and controlling phase. What do we do during the executing and controlling phase is that we stick to the plan and we execute what is discussed during the planning stage. So we build deliverables. Then we have the project dashboard and status reports to track whether we are in line with the plan. So this is very much important to understand where we are in a project and to know whether we can deliver the project during the stipulated time, during the deadline that we are given with. So last is the closing stage. At this phase, what we do is we deliver the project. So user accepts it. We call it user acceptance. And at this stage, we have lessons learned. So these lessons learned are always documented. From one project to another project, we always refer to the lessons that we have learned, not to repeat our mistakes. So that's the main reason why we document our lessons learned. So this is very much important when it comes to projects. Triple constraints theory. So it's all about the budget, time, scope. So we should not compromise any of this. So it has an impact on the quality. So it's about, like, when you talk about the budget, you initially have a budget for the project. So if you are making any changes to the budget, it will have an impact on the time and also the scope. Because suppose now you have 5 resources for a project and you are going to increase the number of resources for that particular project up to 6. So for that additional resource that you utilize, you have to spend some money for that. So that's a cost incurring. So as a result, what happens is your time will get shortened. So you can deliver it earlier than the deadline that you have fixed. So likewise, all these 3 constraints has a relationship. So one has an impact on the other, always. So let's look at 3 tips for successful project planning. Project planning is a very critical stage. So if you plan properly, you can complete accordingly within the stipulated time period, within the budget, and also within the expected quality. So before the kickoff of any project, we need to define all projects in detail and resourcing as required. So what does this mean? Defining all projects means, as in an example, if we take our AM team, so they go to the clients and the client gives the requirement. So the client will say, I want this to be done, this is what I need and all. So then the AMs come to designers and they brief the requirement of the client. So these things need to happen accordingly. So if the AM is not defining the all the requirements of the client at the beginning, at the planning stage itself, then the execution will be a problem, because all the details will not be captured in the execution stage. Then set up a way to track progress. Example, like tracking the time using Asana. So we recently started using this. So this will help you to track where we are, what we are doing in the project, So it's like a collaboration platform and managing for dependencies. So the same example I can take here as well. So if you look at this diagram, you can see that this red box is dependent on this blue box, and this blue box is dependent on this blue. So just like this, when it comes to a simple project, let's take a web design, web development project. So the AM will go and get the requirement from the client, and then the AM will come and brief it to the designers. So designers are dependent on whom? The AM. So always there is a dependency, and then when the designers come up with the design, it goes to the web developers. So the developers' work is dependent on the designers' work. So we need to understand these dependencies, because in case if like we'll take an example for this, like Abhi gives dialogue artworks to Eddie. So if Eddie is not here, in his absence, we need to understand how we will get the work done. So we need to have a plan, backup plan. Always that is very much important to keep in mind. We need to come up with a backup plan at the planning stage, because in the execution stage, if we cannot replace him, the project end of the project, the impact the project has is something we cannot recover, the deliverable and the quality. So that we need to keep in mind. Looking at modern teams, so modern teams are virtual now. 38% of people on teams work cross-functionally. So Infection is a best example for that. So we have AM team, design team, development team, and we work with one another. So that's why we say 38% of people on teams work cross-functionally with departments. It's not a single department that work towards a goal. 78% work with members both inside and outside of their organization, and 28% work with geographically dispersed colleagues. So like we work on Invisalign projects, we work with Ambrosia, likewise. So the traps, why we fail to deliver projects on time and why the quality is getting compromised. Not tracking dependencies. Like I told you guys, we need to track the dependencies and we need to have a backup plan always. So that is very much crucial during completion of projects and coming up with the expected quality. Resources over allocated or over committed. So we need to understand how many resources we need for a particular project. So when we are having multiple projects in hand, we need to know we have enough resources to do that. So if we are allocating 5 members for one team, we cannot allocate the same members for the other project if we have to deliver it on the same deadline. So we need to strike a balance.